Hello, my friends, and welcome to Just a Darn Good Story. I just want to take a moment of your time to remind you to please tap the thumbs up button, tap the bell if you want notifications of when I'm uploading, and of course, subscribe and comment. For some reason, these things go a long way to helping a channel grow. If you have a thought or a suggestion of a story you would like me to read, please send me an email. And also, if you have your own story that you feel people would be interested in, by all means, send it to me at justadarngoodstory@outlook.com. All right then, please enjoy today's story. Throughout history, there has been a very long list of unsolved mysteries to date. A few of those mysteries would be the Zodiac Killer, D.B. Cooper, that's a good one, Jack the Ripper, and the list goes on and on. But this story that I'm about to tell you today, in my opinion, is probably one of the most interesting mysteries unsolved today. In the winter of 1921 to 1922, the Bavarian countryside north of Munich lay under a blanket of quiet snow. About 70 kilometers from the city, hidden behind the hamlet of Kaifeck, and bordered by dense, whispering woods, stood a small farmstead known as Hinterkaifeck. It was reportedly built around 1863. It was a modest, self-contained world. A combined house and barn connected by a narrow corridor, an engine shed, a hayloft above, and fields that stretched into the forests. The isolation was profound. There were no close neighbors, only a winding path leading to the road. Whoever lived there was truly alone. Andreas Gruber, 63, ruled the place with an iron hand. A gruff, litigious farmer, he was also known as being frugal, stingy, and even cheap. And he was also well known for his temper. His wife, Cecilia, 72, was a frail and devout woman. Their widowed daughter, Victoria Gabrielle, 35, had recently returned home after her husband died in the war. She brought with her 2 children, 7-year-old Cecilia, whom they called Cicely, and her 2-year-old brother, Joseph. Many people talked about his paternity, and many also believed that Andreas, his own grandfather, was most likely his father. And these rumors stemmed from a dark family secret that once landed Andreas in prison for incest with his daughter Victoria. So the Grubers kept to themselves. Their neighbors knew better than to pry. Their closest neighbor, Lorenz Schlittenbauer, lived in the nearby village of Grobern, which was approximately 1.5 kilometers away from the Grubers. There was rumors that Lorenz Schlittenbauer wanted a relationship with Victoria Gabriel, but her father, Andreas Gruber, absolutely forbade it. The Grubers had many maids over the years. They came and they went, some lasting longer than others, but usually they left quickly. The latest one had fled months earlier, insisting that the farm was haunted by strange noises from the attic and an unshakable feeling of being watched. She begged Andreas Gruber to please check the attic. Although it irritated him to no end, he would go and check the attic. It was a large open space with nothing to hide behind. There was nobody up in the attic. Then she complained that she felt she was always being watched and that somebody was talking through the walls. Again, he did what he could to placate her, but then she eventually left, saying that the house was haunted. At first, the family thought that was ridiculous, but then signs began. One of 2 sets of keys just completely disappeared. The whole family was forced to search high and low, but the keys were never found. Other items began to disappear. Large portions of food. Meals would be made ahead of time, and when the family would come in to eat, there would be only half of what was cooked. Nobody would own up to it. Then, late February 1922, a fresh snow fell overnight. The next morning, Andreas discovered footprints, clear, adult-sized, leading from the edge of the woods straight to the farm buildings. No footprints led back out. Whoever had come had stayed. He searched the property with a lantern, but found nothing. The tracks vanished into the barn or hayloft, as the intruder had simply dissolved into the farm itself. Over the following weeks, the disturbances grew more and more intimate. Heavy footsteps echoed from the attic at night. Andreas climbed that ladder multiple times, heart pounding, but the space was empty, except for a few bales of hay. He himself had started hearing the sounds, as well as the rest of the family members, who also started to admit it. And now they all believed the maid was telling the truth after all this time. One day, a newspaper appeared on the porch that no one in the family recognized. Nobody had been there and nobody had left. Where did the newspaper come from? Bread in the kitchen was found half-eaten. Crumbs were scattered where none should be. Scratches appeared on the lock of the tool shed, as if somebody had tried and failed to force entry into it. Again, nobody heard a sound. Finally, Andreas confided in a few neighbors, one of which was the pre-mentioned Lorenz Schlittenbauer. It was reported that Schlittenbauer said, "Andreas said someone's living with us, hiding and watching." The neighbor asked him what he meant. He said, "Somebody is hiding in our house. He's waiting and watching us." The neighbor asked, did the whole family feel the same way? And he agreed. He said they all hear the voices above their heads, the ceiling creaking, and tapping on the wall, always tapping on the wall. The neighbor recommended that he call the police, but pride, perhaps, or fear of ridicule maybe stopped him. But in the meantime, the whole family was tense, continuously glancing at the ceilings and the doorways. And then on March the 30th, the day before everything ended, Andreas noticed fresh signs of tampering, more footprints, a break-in attempt at the engine shed. But nothing was stolen. But the violation felt personal to him. That same day, a new maid arrived. It had been months, and the family was so relieved that finally they had help. Her name was Maria Baumgarten. She was 44 years old, a sturdy woman, and a woman eager to please her new employers. Her sister, Franziska, had walked her the final stretch from the train station. They reached Hinterkaifeck around 5 p.m. on Friday, March 31st, which was Good Friday. Maria carried her small suitcase upstairs to the maid's room. She unpacked while the family prepared for the evening chores. Franziska said goodbye and left. Maria would never leave. No one knows the precise sequence that night, but the investigators later reconstructed a likely horror. The killer, almost certainly already inside the house or the barn, waited until darkness fell, perhaps from the hayloft, listening to voices below, perhaps from behind a door in the narrow corridor connecting the house and the barn. One by one, the family was lured or forced into the barn through the stable entrance. Andreas first, maybe called to check on the livestock, then Cecilia, then Victoria, and then little Celie. They were struck repeatedly with a mattock, a heavy farm tool like a pickaxe belonging to Andreas himself. Blows crushed the skulls, shattered jaws, and tore faces. Autopsies would later reveal 7 to 9 star-shaped wounds per adult victim, defensive marks on the hands and arms. Young Celie suffered the longest. She lived hours after the initial attack, perhaps crawling in agony before succumbing. With the barn victims dead, the killer returned to the house. Maria Baumgarten was attacked in her bedroom. Crosswise blows to the head while she may have been preparing for bed. Little Joseph, asleep in his cot in Victoria's room, received a single devastating strike to the face. The murders likely took place late on March 31st, but the killer did not flee. For at least 2 or 3 days, someone remained on the farm. The animals were fed, the hay was placed in mangers, water buckets were filled, smoke rose from the chimney. Neighbors passing by late on April 1st reported seeing lights in the windows. One claimed to spot 2 figures near the forest edge around 3 a.m., who hid their faces when noticed. Mail piled up at the post office. Celie missed school on April 1st, and then again on April 3rd. The family failed to show up for church. By April 4th, concerns turned to alarm. Neighbors, led by Lawrence Schlitzenbauer, forced entry. In the barn, 4 bodies stacked neatly under the hay. An old stable door laid across them like a crude lid. Blood had pooled and congealed. In the house, Maria in her room, Joseph in his cot. The mattock, bloodied and hay-covered, was found in the loft. Later it was discovered that a farm mechanic or a repairman showed up at the farm on April the 1st to repair a feed chopper. He knocked at the door of the farmhouse. He noticed there was a fire going and that there were dogs inside. After knocking for a few minutes, he went and poked his head into the barn, ironically. There was nobody there. He called out several times. Again, he went back to the house and knocked on the doors. Still nothing. So he decided to just go ahead and fix the feed chopper, as he had the parts that were needed. After the job was completed, he went back to the farmhouse door and knocked again. But this time he noticed that the dogs were now tied out back. But still he knocked and nobody answered the door. He assumed that the family got busy elsewhere and they would contact him once they realized the feeder was fixed. Autopsies in the barn confirmed the weapon and the brutality. There were no valuables taken, no sexual assaults, no clear robbery motive. The scene suggested ritualistic care in hiding the bodies and a chilling calm afterwards. Police from Munich, led by Inspector George Reingruber, descended. Over 100 people were questioned. Neighbors with grudges, vagrants, former farmhands, even the neighbor, Lawrence Schlitzenbauer, who discovered the bodies and fed the animals post-murder, drawing suspicion. Theories swirled: revenge over family secrets, a drifter, a rejected suitor. Footprints matched no one definitively, no fingerprints. Forensics were rudimentary at the time. The case file grew thick with dead ends. The farm stood empty, avoided. It was demolished in the 1930s. Locals claimed the ground felt wrong. The murders were officially closed, unsolved, in 1955, with final interviews as late as 1986. A century later, the questions lingered, like attic footsteps. In 2007, the police academy reviewed it. Students from a German police academy reviewed the original files using modern investigative methods. They were given access to the original police records and witness statements. The group reportedly reached a strong internal conclusion about the likely suspect. However, the name was never publicly released, partly because the suspected person was long dead, and there was insufficient proof for a legal conclusion. Officially, the case remains unsolved. More than a century later, the questions linger, like attic footsteps. Who hid in the hayloft, eating the family's bread, listening to their prayers? Who fed the cows after slaughtering the children? Who walked away into the Bavarian woods, never to be seen again? The end. I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I enjoyed telling it. I hope you have a wonderful day. All the best. Bye for now.